Sports at 48th and Vine. Attention all Nebraska basketball fans. The NCAA tournament is coming soon, and Nebraska looks to be on its way to their first appearance in 10 years. Better Tree Removal wants to celebrate the occasion and any possible success in the tournament by offering a deal. If you're in need of tree removal on your property, call or text Todd by March 20th. If Nebraska wins the first round game, you'll get 25% off the bid. If they win two, you'll get 50% off. You must contact Todd at 402-780-1377 before March 20th.
Finally, a good reason to have a smart house. Just say, Alexa, play 93.7 The Ticket, and we'll magically start playing. How's it work? Nobody knows. Don't ask questions.
Shopping for new flooring is different today. Getting your questions answered, making the right selection, getting the best value, and installed quickly and professionally. Visit ostreetcarpet.com or shop our store. We'll answer all your questions and help you make the right choice. You'll be enjoying your new floor in just days for less than you'd pay elsewhere. Carpet, vinyl, wood, laminate, tile, and area rugs. We've got it all.
O Street Carpet.
1732 O Street. Family owned and operated. Always the best value.
Rashawn Jackson here for Bauer Underground, who has been serving local contractors and utility contractors all across the state since 1997. When you see the black and white trucks, you know the baddest dudes in the business have arrived. Bauer is currently looking for equipment operators, laborers, diesel mechanics, and aerial linemen. Join the brotherhood built on hard work, authentic people, and pedigree of success. Bauer, a family-friendly company who reminds you, go Big Red!
This is Lincoln's home for sports talk on the FM dial. Also online at theticketfm.com.
On the internet.
KNTK FM Firth, 93.7 The Ticket. This isn't any regular heat. This is nuclear heat. Live from the 93.7 The Ticket studios in the heart of Lincoln, America. Bringing you the latest from the Square Circle on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. Here is your host, Jake Bakovic.
Back with you for another week in review in the WWE. Another week of wrestling down. We're in between. We like to do these shows in between Raw and SmackDown to review what's been going on a very exciting time in the world of wrestling. Once again, I am your host, Jake Bakoven, and we are on 93.7 The Ticket. Proud to do it once again. I am joined by Nuclear Heat contributor Augie Pena once again. Augie, how have you been? How has the wrestling been for you in the last week?
Oh, I've been pretty good. The wrestling's been exciting. It's, some Raw was great. SmackDown, had some pretty good segments. So all in all, a good week for wrestling. Excited to do the show.
Yeah, absolutely. As we usually do the show, if you don't know, if it's your first time, tell your friends, like and subscribe and all that, share. And we just got a new Twitter, so at Nuclear Heat Show is where you can go if you want to follow us there. And we'll just continue doing this from week to week. Once again, we review SmackDown, we review Raw, and then if there's a premium live event. Now, which will have Prime on the middle of the ring, as we learned, we will do that as well. So lots of fun as we lead to WrestleMania. No shortage of stories, as everything is directly tied in. That's why it's just a great time of the year, for any wrestling fan. Of course, Raw happened just a night ago, so we'll get to that in a little bit. But we like to go in chronological order, so we'll review SmackDown, which is can lead to this Friday night as well. So. Big week in wrestling. Not too many stories, I feel, outside of the ring. They continue to add to their Hall of Fame class. And there's some speculation there about will they, because there's still some big names, including The Rock and Batista, that haven't been elected quite yet. Paul Heyman seems to be the headliner. The big question to me, as they've now added some of the older Rotunda family to this year's class, is if they will go with Bray Wyatt this year. It'll be a special moment whenever they choose to do so. I don't know if that's the route that go this year, but that is something to look out for. Let's get into SmackDown, though. Of course, they did a great job with the presentation because it was all the match card, or excuse me, the show card going into the night was this confrontation we were going to have between Cody Rhodes, Seth Rollins, and The Rock and Roman Reigns in the Bloodline. And so I just want to start by saying excellent job on the entrance. These guys look like absolute stars coming in. Cody Rhodes walking in, Seth Rollins coming right beside him, looks really great. The Rock coming in with a big truck. I mean, he can ride anything. The Rock looks cool. Cowboy hat. He's just kind of wearing all different things through this heel run, and that's going to work for him. But we opened up with Logan Paul's return to SmackDown. Again, he had the historic announcement that his energy drink Prime will be at the center of the ring and sponsor all premium live events moving forward for the WWE. So again, Logan Paul has a lot of drawing power and just power in general outside of the WWE. So this is an example of that. His cohort with him in Prime, KSI, enters the ring. Augie, do you know who KSI is? Maybe I feel a little bit old here. I kind of understand who he is, but wrestling does this a lot where they'll bring in a celebrity and I have to Google who it is.
Yeah, so I wouldn't call him a celebrity, but he's a YouTuber. I've never watched any of his videos, going through TikTok and things like that. I see him, but I do know that he's a partner with the Paul brothers and co-owns Prime. I'm pretty sure, because I think earlier, was it last year? He's the guy that was dressed in the Prime bottle. That's KSI. I believe he's a boxer as well. Like he's doing what the Pauls are doing. But yeah, other than that, that's my extent of knowing who KSI is. But I will say this: he is, for the small bits they have of him, I think he does a phenomenal job in the ring.
Yeah, he actually did do really well. I was noticing that. You just look at his body language and stuff as he was looking, because I think Randy Orton's music hit, he ends up going up behind him. But when he was looking, he looked like a wrestler. And it's a weird thing to say, but we've seen celebrities that come in and don't necessarily, maybe they don't just have a feel for it. You're nervous or whatever. But just his body language was very well of a wrestler, which, Logan Paul has passed that test with flying colors. There was at once a time when you brought him in, you kind of thought, is he just a celebrity? And then he's proven himself as a wrestler. They still use the story of an outsider, and as well they should. But yeah, I thought KSI looked pretty good. Ends up taking the RKO from Randy Orton. Logan Paul escapes the ring. But this sets up a matchup between Randy Orton and Kevin Owens and Grayson Waller and Austin Theory, who kind of been the henchmen of Logan Paul without officially really being the henchmen of Logan Paul recently. So that's kind of what we had for the opening match of SmackDown. There's a lot of this one finished as you thought it would. Randy Orton and Kevin Owens getting the win. Pop-up RKO on Theory for the win. And that's a really good move that uses well-known move sets and skills from both guys. Do you think there's any future with a Randy Orton, Kevin Owens tag team, especially with that finisher? Or do you think this is kind of, what it looks like from the outside or from where we are now is it's probably going to head toward a triple threat for the United States Championship at WrestleMania. And at that point, you think that Orton or Owens will have to turn on each other. So do you make a heel out of this? Is this a tag team moving forward? And maybe you just go one-on-one with Orton and Paul at WrestleMania? Or how do you think this is headed?
Yeah, so beautiful move, that pop, man. I watched it and I kind of replayed it a couple times. It was beautifully executed there. That's an interesting question. I think I love seeing Randy Orton kind of on his own, but he's proven he can be an excellent tag team partner, and so can Kevin Owens. And I think they're both they're in this feud right now, but outside of that, they've kind of been a little directionalist, Yeah. It's like, what are they going to do with them? So if, WWE's pretty well known for, sticking two guys like that together. But hey, these are two, hard work, great workers. They're really over with the fan base. So I think it'd be great. And I would love to see them as heels, because we all know Randy Orton, Kevin Owens as heels. As you mentioned, that's probably their best work. You have the, what's Kevin Owens, the prize fighter, and Randy Orton, the legend killer, the Viper. Those two together. Ooh, I think that'd be great. I thought this match was okay. I thought it was funny. I think it's funny that Grayson Waller and Austin Theory are kind of just being jobbed right now, just at the fact that, Grayson Waller was so hyped with his show, the Grayson Waller show. And Austin Theory was, he who shall not be named, Golden Boy, there for a little bit. And now, they're both being jobbed. So we'll see where they go. But man, yeah, Kevin Owens, Randy Orton, I think that'd be fun.
Well, I think you're right too. I mean, I think there is this story that they're kind of slowly telling is the dissension between Waller and Theory. But I think there is a problem there of like, to be nice and putting it is who cares? Like, who wants to see a face Theory? Because you're going to have to turn it one way or the other. Waller is such a good heel. Theory's just kind of been directionless. That's why he's in this tag team to begin with. Is they've tried to feed him everything, and he's got everything. Yeah, it just hasn't gotten over. So it's very strange. And again, maybe it's kind of the small details. But they do these, and I'll mention this quite often because I love the fact that they do it. Is that they show the ratings in the video game, the upcoming video game, and it's just notable that Austin Theory is like a 71 or pretty low. Compared to some of the other ratings, and he just beat John Cena at WrestleMania last year. Like, they've given him spots with the Undertaker. They even gave him the Rock's return. I mean, they've given him everybody. They've tried the rub on with everybody they have. You mentioned Vince. I mean, they've done everything they can to get him over and believable. I still think cashing in on the United States Championship partially hurt him. And I hope they don't do that or something like that again. With the cash in this year, but that's also a story. I just don't know how much staying power or interest there would be in that split. By the way, in this match as well, we had a Logan Paul come out to the ring, tease using his brass knuckles on these guys. He also kind of made up for what Randy Orton did earlier with his surprise attack. He came up and hit both these guys with like this elbow. I thought they did a good job of shooting it, but a little bit non-believable that both of them were basically out for the count and ready to get knocked out from Paul from there. But in any case, it's wrestling. Sometimes you have to suspend your disbelief. And so, I mean, again, the one problem I have with the brass knuckles, which is where they've run with Logan Paul, is that he's kind of the chicken bleep heel that'll hit you with brass knuckles to get the win. Is that they used to tell the story that he's already got metal in his arm, so a knockout punch from his right hand, was part of his moveset. And so I don't know if we're just supposed to kind of forget that or what, but I guess now he needs brass knuckles to do it.
And my favorite part of that whole thing was, they took the brass knuckles from him. I think Randy was going to hit Logan with it, and he ducked and kind of teased Kevin Owens, and they did the whole, and then they dab each other up, and then we saw where Randy Orton put those brass knuckles in his shorts. He kind of dropped it in there, and I just remember being like, that is a weird segment right there. I was like, that is WWE to the prime. Randy Orton is close to being on my Mount Rushmore of wrestlers, and they got him doing things like that. I think that's the fun part of it. Is you look at him a certain way, but you can't always take them as serious because they that's the WWE. Anybody can do something like that. And I just laughed. I thought that was a great way to end that segment.
Yeah. And I hope, Randy Orton's right up there as far as if you count the all-time titles. I think he's got 14. Triple H is right there. And then at the top, you got Ric Flair and John Cena. And by the way, John Cena was asked what his favorite championship belt that he won is, and he said the next one. So look out for that. Also, his stunt pull at the Oscars, I think, will get him kind of back into the mind of the just regular American, maybe that doesn't necessarily follow WWE, and WWE usually capitalizes on that. So look out for that. And as hot as wrestling is now, I think that could be another hot angle they bring in. And I'd hope they'd be able to wrestle Ric Flair away from AEW at some point to kind of, blend that in. Nature Boy, dirtiest player in the game. I always wish that's how they would do it if they do choose to have John Cena be their all-time champ. Let's move on here from that segment into the next one. The moment we all been waiting for, Bobby Lashley and Karrion Kross finally colliding as their the two biggest members, I should say, of their factions that have been feuding get together. Going into it, it was pretty obvious, this was not going to be the payoff. So there was going to be some interruption from those from the Authors of Pain, ultimately, or the Street Profits. It ended up being the Authors of Pain because Bobby Lashley had Karrion Kross in his crosshairs. He was about to knock him out. Akam and Rezar hit the ring and break up the spear basically before it could be hit. And then so that led to the disqualification. The Street Profits came out, attempted to make the save. There was also appearance from B-Fab in there. So you kind of get everybody from both factions except for the old man. But in any case, something that was needed, I suppose, in this feud was the Final Testament standing tall because they need to build up, I believe, the Authors of Pain a little bit more. But I mean, it's still it didn't really forward the story too much. Maybe brought up Karrion Kross and his group to a little bit more of a believability factor. But I don't necessarily want to see any more of it. And I think it's headed toward either WrestleMania or, SmackDown, Raw after Mania, or SmackDown before that. And it's weird because there's just a lot of talents. I'm a big fan of Akam and Razar, the Authors of Pain. I think if booked right, I mean, they're big guys. They can, and they showed that. That was kind of the stories, beating people down. I think Kross has, he's believable at least. He's had a lot of gimmicks, and he's got a lot, whether he grows his hair or cuts. I mean, he just has not been able to get over because any of his feuds would be exactly like I expect this one to go, where he talks trash. The Final Testament was supposed to mean the end of something, and then ultimately loses the feud and then picks somebody else to say, well, then now I'm going to go after you, just like I went after these other guys. And you're like, well, you didn't beat anybody. Yeah. So, I mean, I think there's something there. Obviously, Bobby Lashley, no need to explain that. Yeah. He's incredibly great when they have him in the right position. And the Street Profits, I mean, Bobby Lashley and the Street Profits just felt like that grouping should have been a lot better by now. The Street Profits have gone considerably down from where they were before joining Bobby Lashley, which I just don't know how they've managed to do that. But I mean, your thoughts on these factions, on this match, on where it's headed. Is there a way of saving at this point? Because they're almost too far in.
No, I don't think there is. I'm with you on that. I really don't want to see more of this. It's sad because, oh my goodness, the one married to Bianca Belair, Montez Ford. I thought he had star potential written all over him. His athleticism, everything like that. They were talking about breaking up the Street Profits. I thought them teaming with Bobby Lashley, a former champ, someone who in the 2000s there in ECW, was phenomenal and all that. I thought giving them the rub would really ascend them to the heights that they needed to be at, and just nothing. This feud is stale. Like you said, Karrion Kross, I can't remember when's the last time he's really even done anything, where that's resulted in him getting a win. It's just, it's tough to see. You kind of feel bad for them because, as you said, they all have the look and they have the athleticism. They could do it. Just the storyline isn't doing anything, and they're just not being done any favors right now. But, as you say, screen time is better than no time. So, they probably can't complain. They're on SmackDown every single week for some reason. So, I mean, there's something.
Well, and there was a few years ago where this would have fed right into basically the philosophy that WWE had, which was just 50-50 booking you to death until you get the payoff at a premium live event at the time, a pay-per-view. And so, it just feels like there should be more there. I mean, I think too, like the Final Testament just sound and looks and just has everything like of what I would think I was cool when I was like 14 and I made my own stable. And so, but it just feels like it's just not there. Like it's like that idea where it's like, I think I could do this. I could book this. And you'd come up with like that sort of idea, and then you'd see why it doesn't work. It just, sometimes if just, you don't have the right characters, you don't get the right moment. Sometimes it's a mistake. I mean, there's plenty of examples. I mean, Maxine Dupree, who we'll talk about later, was booed out of the building because of her lack of ability to wrestle on a house show or something. The other, and they've turned that into something to kind of give her in some interest. I don't think that's going to go in the right direction either. But my point is, like, a lot of this stuff doesn't have to be from what you're scripting, what you're writing down. Some of it can just kind of take hold, and there's been nothing that the WWE universe has stuck their teeth into for any of this feud or either of these factions.
Yeah, no, and I agree. I don't have all that much to add to that. You pretty much spoke it. All I think what like 99% of the WWE fan think of this, and you just kind of, like I said, you just kind of feel bad because Bobby Lashley's a workhorse. I think he works everything. Karrion Kross, I know he was huge in NXT, and then they did the whole, like, they put a mask on him, shaved his head. I think that I just don't feel like he's recovered. They even gave him his wife. His wife is a she's big on YouTube. She kind of does all that stuff, and it's just not working. And they're good in the ring. They are good. It's just every feud is just so bland. It's like they're trying to force it, and it's just not working. So it's like the opposite of a LA Knight or something like that. Where they're always on TV, they're always the guys there, just not paying off, and it just makes you kind of feel bad for them.
Well, and it's interesting too because their entrance was kind of what really got them over in NXT. They tried a few different things and then finally brought that over. And again, it just feels a little bit too late to save whatever they had over there from NXT. But I do give credit to the people in charge now, as opposed to the last guy, I suppose, is that they seem to be understanding more of what gets somebody over in NXT should probably be what carries over into the main roster, instead of just re-scripting something altogether. Let's move on here. Bianca Belair in the backstage segment expresses zero sympathy for Bayley as she was having a back and forth with Naomi. Kind of understandable there. I like that at least it's not all is forgiven as soon as Bayley turns face. But you have to ask too, is like, what is the plan for Bianca at this point? She even mentioned it a couple weeks ago before Elimination Chamber, is that she's got a WrestleMania streak. Like and I believe they're going to push that. I think they're going to continue that. But right now they don't have a match for her.
Yeah, it is confusing because we got a month until WrestleMania. So if they're gonna bring something up and not just force it, put it all jumbled in there, they got work to do. And I think we got 4 SmackDowns until the biggest, show of them all. I still hope it's Jade, Cargo, but man, you would expect, where's Jade? We haven't even seen her on TV. I mean, unless they do a total switch and they're like, hey, Tiffy, Tiffy time,
Tiffy,
she's on a roll right now. She is, she's on a roll. These interactions, they're just kind of plugging her in random places. And it's weird, because Bianca Belair, as you said, she's been in the last so many WrestleManias. And I mean, she's, fought for the championships on them. And now, this year she's done good things. She was just in the Elimination Chamber. She was close to that. All of that stuff. And you can't figure anything out. I really hope that they can figure out something good for her, because I don't want to just see her and Naomi, because of something like this, where it's like, oh, you called me out, or, you said I shouldn't feel bad for Bayley, because we've seen stuff like that happen. I just really hope they don't go down that road.
Yeah, we'll see what the plan is there for Bianca. I mean, I feel like her character is already, kind of stale the way it is. I don't know, what a heel Bianca would necessarily look like, but we'll see what they do moving forward. You mentioned Tiffany Stratton. They had basically a showcase match for her against Michin. She gets the win with the prettiest moonsault ever. Not much to say there. They're just building up Tiffany. And to your point too, I think that they've got something there. Do they want to cash it in already on WrestleMania? Again, I think you should. I think you take what's kind of going at the time, whether that be LA Knight, the boost for Dominic Mysterio, or just the natural appreciation and love for Tiffany Stratton at this point, and move it on. Didn't quite feel like she was quite as beloved by this crowd as others, but again, the stakes weren't as high.
Yeah, and you got to strike when the iron's hot. WWE has a history of building. It's hot. Don't do anything. It kind of goes down, and then they try. So I mean, I know she just came down, but man, that just like the audience in Australia loved her. And I think at most house shows she's doing pretty good on there. I think if they are going to do something, do it soon, because like I said, you don't want to lose some of that steam, and then people are like, too late.
Yeah, and again, she's a complete package. I mean, she might legitimately be right up there, with Bianca or some of the others as one of the most athletic, impressive performers in the ring.
Yep.
So just because she's kind of new doesn't mean she's raw. And so I think that that'd be something they should capitalize on. After that match, AJ Styles cuts a pre-taped promo on LA Knight, who was not happy watching the promo, and so he beat up a TV with a steel chair. Nothing more than that out of this feud. And we'll see. That's obviously the WrestleMania feud. It's supposed to almost. They're going to have to do a little bit for me to turn it into a blood feud. Like they have LA Knight with absolute hatred of AJ Styles, and the same in reverse. And I suppose, they cost each other, I suppose, for Elimination Chamber and a shot at the title. So they've built it in well enough. But it's not necessarily the WrestleMania match that I'm looking forward to the most.
No, but you know what? After I had some time, after some grief I had there and everything, I thought of it. AJ Styles is going to be a Hall of Famer. I think we can agree with that. Yep. He's had a good while short, he's had a very good WWE career. Champion, multi-time champion, has done it all. I mean, he's not hot right now just because of how he's been booked. But I mean, if that's who LA Knight's going to face at WrestleMania, I mean, it's something. It's a card on the biggest show of them all. It's against a former champ, like we said, going to be Hall of Famer. Because I believe AJ Styles already come out and said he's not going to extend his contract because he's in his he's up high 40s. So I mean, AJ Styles last WrestleMania, might not be the greatest, but LA Knight gets a win there or something, good. If they could save it, make it good, come out with a win there. I mean, that could be a good rub.
I just hope they don't do what I think they might do with this feud, and they do sometimes, is WrestleMania is supposed to be the grand all end all of the feuds. This feels like one that might bleed over into not only, the Raw after WrestleMania or SmackDown in this case after WrestleMania, but what do they call it? Like WrestleMania regurgitated, whatever their next pay-per-view is.
Backlash,
right? Yeah,
WrestleMania Revenge. It's something like
I
that.
think it's Backlash, and this year it's in France or somewhere, I believe. So I think they're maybe at least going to do something there. But I hope what I love about WrestleMania, and specifically about WrestleMania season, is Raw after WrestleMania.
Yeah.
At times, that is some of the biggest returns and biggest fun, and kind of a reset to the new season, the next year of leading up to WrestleMania. And I just don't like when they carry the feuds over, but we'll see. We might see that happening with that particular feud. What I do expect to continue is LWO and Legado del Fantasma. They had the next episode there. Dragon Lee basically made fun of by Legado del Fantasma for basically wanting to be the next Rey Mysterio, and they're telling me, look, he's an adult dressed up as Rey Mysterio, which is true. But he's got some pretty good stuff in the ring, and he's a luchador. Rey Mysterio is not the original luchador, so they just did good stuff, I thought, with what they had there. They have Dragon Lee ultimately beat Angel Garza in the ring, which was good because then the heels got the chance to beat up Dragon Lee, who's not officially part of the LWO. But for the LWO not to come out and save Dragon Lee, I thought was interesting.
Yeah. No, and I agree. Good match, between two essential luchadors, it's fun in there, being of, the Latino, descent that I am. It's always nice to see that because, that's huge, the luchadors and whatnot. But yeah, it's a little confusing because Dragon Lee's always kind of there, then he's not. They don't back him up, but he backs him up. I don't know. It's kind of almost like a R-Truth wanting to be in the Judgment Day, except they kind of acknowledge Dragon Lee. Man, unfortunately, I just feel like this feud is another just filler. I know what they're trying to pay off, between the two factions, but I just don't feel like it has. It hasn't really connected with me or with, I feel like, the WWE universe. This is kind of like that. Oh, I'm going to go to the bathroom or do something kind of break, which stinks because if you actually watch the match, it's not bad. It's some high flying stuff and things like that. So it's a little disappointing, but we'll see where they go with this. I don't see it ending at WrestleMania, like you said. I think it'll go for another year or two.
Right.
We're in for a ride here, folks. So we'll see.
Well, and two, it feels like something that, I think they've attached Rey Mysterio to try to raise up all the young talents. And I think it's working. Like I disagree with you to a degree because I've been saying it too, is I don't think it's quite WrestleMania, but I do think it's good. Like I think it's good TV time, and I think it's interesting enough with the feud that they have. The problem is that I don't know if Ray's bringing them up or overshadowing them, because when he returns, like that's when it's hot. That's when people want to see what's going to happen. That's when you want to see the bad guys get their comeuppance. So they've got a little bit of work to do on it, but I'm interested and intrigued enough, partially because I like guys like Angel Garza and some of the younger talents that they have around, especially in Legado del Fantasma. So I'd like to see what they do there, but we'll see. Like we said, not everything can be the top of the card. You need some mid card action. I think they're doing
for sure
well enough in the mid card there. Speaking of the top of the card, that's where we finished out SmackDown here. Of course, this was the confrontation: Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins standing tall against The Rock and Roman Reigns. Basically, ultimately, Seth Rollins accepts the challenge, which is not necessarily good for Cody Rhodes. So now, basically, if the good guys win, there will be no bloodline interaction on Sunday in the match between Rhodes and Reigns. If the bad guys win, then there will be bloodline rules. And Rock has said as much. He'll make sure that Rhodes doesn't win there. what is your kind of thoughts here? As I should also say, Rhodes slaps The Rock to get his receipt from The Rock doing that at the WrestleMania kickoff event. So it was kind of weird. It was kind of a cliffhanger there. They closed the show out there. But just kind of more importantly, who do you think is going to win that match on night 1 of WrestleMania? How do we set it up?
Man, I'm really torn. I think in order for Cody to truly finish his story, Seth and Cody need to lose on night 1, and he needs to go through the whole bloodline, if that makes sense. I think that's where it needs to go. I'm still 100% putting it on that there's going to be some turns. I think Rollins is going to betray, and I think The Rock is going to turn babyface. I think that's what's going to happen. It's an interesting setup. I really love it. I really like this segment. With the entrance, Seth and Cody coming in, the way the Shield did through the crowd. I thought that got a huge pop. That was great. The Rock's new entrance, as you mentioned, that was phenomenal. I knew who was coming, but man, that, it all goes black and then the lightning and it just really comes on. But I do think that Rock and Roman are going to win. And because I think The Rock is going to turn on Roman Reigns, help Cody. Some WWE writing has to go on there. So use your imagination on that. But that's where my mind's wandering on that. So
there's a lot that can happen. And again, I don't know, overall, if you're a Cody Rhodes fan, you're absolutely having the most fun time in the world. And I'm short of that, but I am having a lot of fun. I just say that to say that there were so many different creative ways that they could have gone. But I think they've set you up with an excellent job of not knowing what's going to happen. And that's where I want to be the most going into WrestleMania. And it's hard to predict what's going on here, particularly too with what we had on Raw with Drew McIntyre and Seth Rollins. So we'll get into that. We've got to take a quick break here on 93.7 The Ticket. This is Nuclear Heat. I am Jake Bakoven, the host of Nuclear Heat here at 93.7 The Ticket, alongside Nuclear Heat contributor Augie Pena. We'll be back with a Raw review coming up next year on 93.7 The Ticket.
At Fairway Meat Market, your family. And as part of the family, they want to save you money on your meat and groceries. Now through March 17th, prepare for St. Patrick's Day with great options like corned beef brisket point cuts for $3.99 per pound and 6 packs of Guinness for just $4.88 when you buy at least $5.01 in fresh meat. And for ticket listeners only, get USDA Choice Eye of Round Roast for $3.99 per pound. That's all at Fairway Meat Market in the Rockledge Shopping Square Center just south of 84th and Van Dorn.
Gaina Trucking is hiring CDL Class A and B drivers. Gaina Trucking guarantees a 40-hour work week year-round, and their strong team culture makes it not a job, but a career. Gaina Trucking offers health, vision, and dental insurance, 401k with company match, an employee assistance program, and other bonus programs. Build a better career today with great team culture at Gaina Trucking. Learn more and apply today at GainaTrucking.com.
Now's the time to schedule your air conditioner service check with Bryant. Make sure it's ready to keep you cool and comfortable when you really need it. Call Bryant Air Conditioning and Heating, 467-1111.
Acres is bringing you the nation's largest indoor display of John Deere equipment and technology. Acres 2024 Ag and Turf Expo showcases everything from tillage and planting to application and harvest. We'll also offer the latest industry insights from ag professionals across the state. Join us in Grand Island at Fauner Park March 21st and 22nd. Go to acres.com/expo24 for a complete schedule of speakers and activities.
Hi, my name is Molly Party. I'm a realtor with MP Dodge Real Estate. I'm a newly licensed agent and considered numerous brokerages before deciding on MP Dodge. I chose the company that gives me the most support in my new career, plus guidance and encouragement along the way. MP Dodge has a unique mentoring program for new agents. It's helped jumpstart my career and has a supportive management team and administrative staff. So if you're contemplating a career in real estate, look no further than MP Dodge. It will be the best decision you make.
Back to Nuclear Heat with your host, Jake Bakoven, on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
We are glad to be back with you here on Nuclear Heat on 93.7 The Ticket. Thanks for staying up with us. A little bit late, but we got some live programming, so we're absolutely taking it here. I am Jake Bachman, your host of Nuclear Heat, our weekly Wrestling in Review WWE show that we do. He is Augie Pena joining me, the Nuclear Heat contributor. I say the Nuclear Heat contributor. We're going to add that to your title now. There you go. It's been long enough. Let's get into Raw. We reviewed SmackDown. Last night's Raw was a pretty good one. You know, sometimes these 3-hour shows can kind of drag. I thought they did a very good job of keep it interesting for the most part. Don't get me wrong. There's always a few matches or a match or two that we'll get to. Maybe start to it's the popcorn matches, like we say. Maybe go get popcorn if you're in the audience, or bathroom break if you're at home. But I thought they did a pretty good job of keeping it interesting, and it shouldn't, again, be all that hard when you're heading into WrestleMania and setting up these feuds to have some of your best week-to-week programming of the year for the WWE. So he kicked off Raw with Drew McIntyre in the ring. Seth Rollins ultimately joins him. This was basically just two guys making fun of or throwing barbs at each other. Of course, the story continues to be, for some reason, Seth Rollins wanted Drew McIntyre to hit him. I was trying to figure out if there was like a stipulation, if he did hit him, or if there's some violence, that it was going to be bad. I think he was just basically making fun of him and telling him, basically saying that he's taking some cheap shots on him, so why not do it to his face? But ultimately, this was very interesting because Drew McIntyre has been great. Not just as a heel, as an actor, as a wrestler. I mean, he's really just come into his own. And he was a guy that, as we've mentioned before, there are characters, there are wrestlers that kind of get stale. He was really kind of stale as the babyface heel with the sword and beat everybody up or whatever. But he's kind of like your Hercules that wasn't quite at the main title holder. So he was kind of stuck there, and now they've turned him into this heel that makes sense, and they've continued that story now, where Seth Rollins has been overlooking him. He beat him a few times for this championship already, and so ultimately, as we close out the opening of the segment, you kind of have to read between the lines to understand that Seth Rollins isn't all that worried about Drew McIntyre, as he's obviously very much concerned with the other title and what's going on with the bloodline. And then he said it. He said at the very bottom, the thing I'm worried about least is Drew McIntyre. Boy, does that add some interest to me in this match, which I was already interested in, but I think that they've done a great job. Like when McIntyre won it, it was like, okay, that's something that they can do. Now they've got me to the point of like, okay, because Rollins is very much in play here around, the WWE, not just with his title. Fascinated. I'm fascinated by what they'll do with this match, because this can go 1,000 different ways too.
Yeah, and I feel like at kind of this moment it flipped. I feel like Seth Rollins had the role of the heel, and Drew McIntyre became the babyface there. It felt like it flipped, because then you also had it was just like a flip back and forth, because then one of the things Seth Rollins said was he calls Drew McIntyre a hypocrite, saying, you say you don't want the bloodline, but yet you always will take their assistance. Like, can you beat me without them? This and that. And that got me thinking like, oh, that's true. He doesn't prevent the bloodline from interfering. He allows it to happen. So it was some really good mic work in there. And I just, I'm hooked to this. I'm very hooked on it, because Seth Rollins, for all the making fun of his costumes and, how it's kind of ridiculous, he is doing a phenomenal job in both of these storylines he's in. Because with The Rock and the bloodline, he's a babyface. And then on this one, it feels like he just switched heel 100%. And man, when he told Drew McIntyre, he's like, this is where my priorities are, and you're down here. I was like, man, that even hurt me, and I'm just a fan out here. I'm like, man, that was great. A great delivery. The writers are cooking. McIntyre and Rollins are giving it their all. I'm very interested to see, because now that I think about what I said about the SmackDown thing, Drew McIntyre is going to probably be a part of the bloodline match on that night one. Something's going to happen there. So it's interesting. They got so many pieces going on. You don't know what they're going to do with it. And man, I'm excited. I was hooked. I was very hooked in this first segment.
And many times too, and they haven't done this for long, but the night 1 and night 2 of WrestleMania is kind of own entities, and you look forward to it. This is very much like night 2 is just like, boy, it's going to be loaded, and and it's all going to be set up by what happens on night 1. So this is going to be fantastic. I think they're just doing a great job doing that. Drew McIntyre continues to make fun of CM Punk, who we've been told is not going to be medically cleared for a match at WrestleMania. Do you think it ends with a match and a spot are two different things? Do you think he gets a spot on McIntyre to help, maybe Rollins get the win?
I believe so, because I think what they'll probably end up doing, like they did in one of the premium live events, is they'll probably have him as like a host of the show, an announcer. He's going to get there, because also Seth Rollins said, "You remind me of somebody." CM Punk,
CM Punk's very much involved.
I was going to say they're in. CM Punk is in their head, and they love to name drop him. And I'm excited. I am very excited to see where this storyline goes. I wasn't too excited at first, but man, like you said, Drew has been working his butt off, and Seth, is always great, and they've hooked in a lot of fans.
Yeah. We'll maybe get to a little bit more of that later, but we've got to move on to the next match on the card here. First match, in fact, Becky Lynch against Liv Morgan. This has been set up pretty well over the last couple weeks, as there's kind of been this three-way battle between these two and Naomi Jax. Did I say that wrong?
Nia Jax.
Nia Jax. That sounded weird. I think it's just Nia Jax. I don't know if there's officially a Naomi. In any case, Nia Jax. And so this was a payoff there. This was a barn burner. These two put on a show, and it went a long time. I mean, you had 2 commercial breaks through it. So basically, they're doing a good job of setting up the story that the winner was going to respect the loser. And that's what you ultimately had here. And I think the booking made sense. Lynch ultimately defeated Morgan with a manhandle slam. By the way, Michael Cole noted this the first time Morgan and Lynch had squared off in over 2 years. So that kind of made the feeling of the match a little bit more important too, as well as with the feuds going on. And so, later in the evening, we saw Becky Lynch and Liv Morgan shake hands and kind of maybe settle their differences before Nia Jax came and knocks them both out again. So we'll continue that kind of 3-way feud leading up to Rhea Ripley. But we have to mention Rhea Ripley, though, as well, because she came out after Lynch and Morgan's battle in the match and walked by Liv Morgan. Morgan said, "I'm going to take everything you love, everything." So she's still squarely focused on her revenge and not necessarily the title even that Rhea Ripley has. So that's kind of interesting. We'll see what happens there. Again, I feel kind of weird about it, because I think Rhea and Becky is big enough to be settled on its own. I think it'd be a great, you could even, if you didn't have so many great matches and interesting things going on night 1 and night 2, you could close a WrestleMania night, I think, with that match, with how over Lynch has just been the last couple of years and where mommy is now. But it's I don't know. So I feel a little bit weird. I'm almost cheering for Liv Morgan and Nia Jax and whatever this is to be settled before WrestleMania, and not necessarily expecting an interference from them.
See, and I was feeling the exact same way last week, but then I watched this match, and man, Liv Morgan being gone for a while has done wonders for her, because this was a great match. And I was rooting for her to win this match, because, her move she was performing in there, phenomenal. I thought Becky's manhandle slam was probably the weakest finisher, on it, but it was great. And it is interesting to see, because what I think it'll be Becky and Rhea will still do their one-on-one. I think they're setting up something for Rhea and Liv, maybe a SummerSlam. I know that's a ways away, but the WWE likes to put these breadcrumbs in, these teasers, for us to kind of hold on to for a while. But man, Liv Morgan is putting on a performance of her life, with the emotion, just everything she's doing. It's great. And then, Rhea Ripley, she has these 2-minute segments, and I saw a hilarious post. It's like, if Rhea Ripley wanted to, was trying to sell me a warranty on my car insurance, I'd be in trouble, because I would buy it from there. And I'm just like, everything she says is just gold. She's so great. She's so convincing.
So comfortable.
Yeah. And then, she backs it up, because she's one of the biggest and best wrestlers there is out there, on that. So, with her and Becky, it just feels like that could, as you said, that could be the main event. But I just feel like Becky's side of it, I feel like her promos have not lived up to it. I feel like her side of it has just been like a generic, I'm the man, I think Becky said, I'm my best when nobody believes in me, when I'm counted out, this and that. And it's like, she's great, and it's going to be a great rub for Rhea ultimately, I believe. But man, Rhea Ripley is just, it's just so over right now. they don't need anybody else. I agree with you on that, but I wouldn't be so, upset if they added Liv Morgan to this triple threat.
Well, that could be interesting. And we'll see. And reasonable minds can disagree, Augie. So
yeah,
fair enough.
100%. That's why we're here, right?
That's right. And so, I mean, we'll see. But I think Rhea Ripley, they've done these long title reigns with Gunther, obviously, and Roman Reigns. I think she's the next one there. I don't think there's any way she loses at WrestleMania. Yeah. I do think it was interesting because for a while now, especially when they were leading up to Elimination Chamber in her going back home, they kind of separated her from the Judgment Day, made her feel more like a, kind of a face, and she could, with her feuds with heels on the women's side, kind of separated it. This night, she was right back with them and planning with them and seen often in the backstage segment. So I'm still intrigued by what they're going to do there. And then Judgment Day, and I don't think I have it written down there, so we can talk about this quickly too. There's talks in the internet wrestling community, I suppose, about when to break them up, how to break them up. Do they need, I still think they should keep going. And they're in fact considering now adding Andrade, who's been brought back as a face. So I don't know. But we'll see if he kind of can get anything going on as a singles act. But it's interesting enough because basically they had this backstage thing. Dom wasn't there today. He's been the main connection to Andrade. Basically where the rest of Judgment Day said, yeah, that guy's legit and we could use him.
And I agree. I kind of want to see this. I want to see them grow. I don't want to see them break up. I did like earlier in the year because I felt like just they were too much. They were in every SmackDown, Raw. They were losing, but they were still running everything. It was kind of weird. Whereas now they're actually winning matches. They're getting the same amount of screen time, but they're winning. So they look like a legitimate threat, and it's fun. It is fun. And then I feel bad for JD McDonald, but I think he's a great addition to this because he's the guy that can lose for them. He's the guy that can take the pins. And if you add a guy like Andrade, who, is, he's been around. His first WWE run wasn't great, but I guess at AEW it was, and a big return. I'm excited.
He put on
for
some
that.
great matches with Ray at first. They didn't probably book him to his ultimate, but he won a U.S. belt, I believe. And
I believe so. And he's got the Flair rub, being he's Mr. Charlotte Flair. In there. And I always find it interesting because Finn Balor, I don't know if you realize he's fluent in Spanish as well. Like he likes to drop a lot of those segments, and he'll say those words, and I think that's hilarious. And I like the flavor they're adding there. So I really hope they keep the Judgment Day together and just dominate. You can have a dominant faction for the next 4 years if you really wanted to.
Yeah. And who knows what they're doing with the bloodline, but I just love these dominant factions that they've got going. And so, if there would be something to happen to the bloodline, at least you could have them there. I wouldn't be surprised. Like if you start to get the faction big enough that where if you add an Andrade, that you could have a babyface turn from, pick whoever you want basically out of the group and kind of have that battle and play that out. Damian Priest, a lot of people would think could be that guy just because you could see the crowd getting behind him as a face. But so that could be something that they do if they keep adding to their faction. The problem is you got to be kind of limited. You can't just have like 9 guys and then it just starts to feel unfortunately like AEW sometimes.
I mean, what they could do though is if this is a wild card that doesn't get talked about a lot. We talk about it, but if Damian Priest cashes in and takes that world heavyweight title, they add members. You have 2 world champs. They kind of had that earlier in the year, that struggle. Who was the leader? They've kind of put that aside right now. You have 2 world champs. You can bring that back, and it turns into Damian's leading one half, Rhea, kind of a cool faction thing there, a split. That I think that'd be a pretty cool way to split it up. But man, just give them all the gold, have them run it for a little bit. I think it's fun. I love seeing the Judgment Day there.
And their backstage segments, it just looks so cool. Their locker room. I want to go hang out back there. But in any case, also speaking of the Judgment Day, Adam Pearce and Nick Aldis revealed that Finn Balor and Damian Priest will defend their undisputed WWE Tag Team Championships against 5 other teams in a 6-pack challenge ladder match at WrestleMania. Not exactly telling you that the tag team is where it was last year, the tag team championship anyway, that Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes against Roman Reigns and The Rock obviously will be the biggest tag team match ever, probably replacing what we had last year. I don't know. I don't necessarily even know how to feel about it. I think that I still want Judgment Day to come out on top. I think this is going to give them very interesting TV over the next couple weeks because they're going to have these kind of qualifying matches with the tag teams, and it gets a lot of people screen time. At WrestleMania, and what better than a ladder match to to kind of fill some time if you need to there. So I think it's an okay idea, not probably ideal for the tag team and for Finn Balor and Damian Priest. And I guess the one problem I have there, and we talk about them being dominant, is that they've already lost them a few times and regained them. So them losing them doesn't quite have the brevity have the importance of, if they were a longtime tag team holder, because you believe that they could get them right back. So that's kind of something to think about. We've got a little bit more on Raw to go through, but we've got to take a quick break here on Nuclear Heat. We'll be right back, close out the show, talking about the rest of Raw. There was an interview from Michael Cole and Cody Rhodes. There was a women's tag team title match, and there was a gauntlet match, which are always excellent to determine the Intercontinental title shot at WrestleMania. So we'll get to that all next year on Nuclear Heat on 93.7 The Ticket.
Be a memory for your grandchildren. Among Nebraska adults age 65 or older, 47% report current alcohol use. Drinking too much can cause harm to children, family members, and loved ones. By drinking less, you will still be around for your grandchildren. If you or a loved one is looking for help, find a treatment facility near you at findtreatment.gov. For immediate support, call, text, or chat 988.
Brought to you by Nebraska DHHS in partnership with SAMHSA.
Hey guys, Jake Sorensen here from Early Break. The garage door at our house has been needing replacement for a couple years, and a few months ago, we finally did something about it. Steve's Garage Doors and Services was great through the whole process in providing options and also going to the next level to get a door that was approved by our HOA. And best of all, the removal of the old door and installation of the new door was done smoothly with no issues. Call Steve's Garage Doors and Services today at 402-480-2840.
Back to Nuclear Heat with your host, Jake Bakoven, on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
We are back with you to close out our review of Raw from last night here on Nuclear Heat, our WWE weekly review, week in review show as we get ready for SmackDown this upcoming Friday. We'll just pick up where we left off on our review of Raw. The next match was a quick one and one that was really just there to have a quick kind of heel turn or heat to put on somebody. So ultimately it was Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell against Ivy Nile and Maxine Dupree. These teams just don't have enough going for them for me to be too interested in it. But they tried to fix that. So LeRae ultimately criticized Dupree for attempting the backwards worm and tells her the women's locker room hates her more than the fans do. And the fans, of course, this is again from a kind of a real life reaction where the fans booed Maxine Dupree because she's really green as a wrestler. And so, that was one thing. And then I thought they crossed the line, and they do this sometimes in wrestling, where she referenced Dupree's late brother, who's not necessarily involved in wrestling. It was just kind of, it's a way to get heat. But Candice LeRae kind of goes from somebody that I haven't thought about to somebody that I don't like. There's a term in wrestling too, where it's it's unfortunate for X-Pac, but it's called X-Pac heat because he, at one time he kind of was kind of put in this category where it's not heat that makes you want the bad guy to get his comeuppance. It's heat that makes you want to turn the channel. And they do this with wrestlers again from time to time. And I never necessarily feel really good about it. It's just weird to bring in real life death situations to a wrestling match. Yeah. But especially one to me here where I just don't, again, they've got to do, and I'm assuming Maxine Dupree, agreed to this, obviously, before you get into the ring, but they've got to do something to kind of, but it seems like I just don't know. This kind of turned me off from something I was already turned off on. Again, so that's what I'm saying. Kind of like more X-Pac heat.
Yeah, it was very weird too. And I think the crowd reacted the same way because it was just a weird segment in general. And then all that happened. I guess I wasn't paying attention that Candice LeRae was trying to go for like this mean girl bully type of thing. I understand why they did it for Maxine Dupree because she does not look good in the ring. She does
Right.
not at all. She looks very bad. So, them maybe bringing this, the booing and all that. But when Indy Hartwell got the pin, did you notice no cheers, no boos? It was
Yeah.
just like what just happened? Like, was this for real? And then, if it almost looked like Indy wasn't comfortable with it. I don't know if you looked at that. She didn't want to grab Candace's hand, and Candace was like, "Come on, we won." And it's just a very weird segment. I don't. It's not going to pay off. I can tell you that. It's like you said, the X-Pac heat. Candice LeRae wasn't anybody had on her radar. It's just very distasteful, and that's very disappointing because I feel like this Raw was really good, and then they have this in here, which I would put as a category of horrible.
Yeah. This was not good. Ivy Nile, of course, in the middle of it too. I think she's the one among them all that has probably the most upside, though. I think her age is a little bit higher than some of the others, but hopefully this doesn't rub off on her. So we'll kind of see where they go next with that. But again, some things at some point distasteful in wrestling. I thought that was one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Michael Cole interviewing Cody Rhodes was up next. Kind of interesting here. Thought that it did a really good job again, furthering the story. Cody Rhodes says that he can't hand the title belt over to Dusty Rhodes, but he can sure do it and hand it over to Michelle Rubio, his mother. Real life kind of choking up and tears to his eyes type of feeling there. And how can he did a great job. And again, acting is part of wrestling, and part of kind of being one of the top guys. And Cody's really good at it. So maybe there was a little bit of acting there, but to me, I could see how that would real life kind of in the moment get you caught up. But he just did a great job of like shaking it off and continuing the promo.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he did a great job. One thing that was notable out of this is Cody was asked about trusting Seth Rollins and just kind of ignored it. So again, it makes you, whether they're going to pay it off or not, it makes you wonder if they will have a turn at some point there.
Yeah, and I think there will be. And it was interesting. They're really pushing Cody here. And by the way, I don't know if you noticed that AEW shout out he did too, where he kind of discussed a lot of that. But he's very good on the ring. He's very good on the mic. But there's just something about him with me that I don't latch on to him like the other fans do. I love his entrance. Like I said, great in the ring, good on the mic. Man, when someone's being forced down our throat like this, I just don't get behind it. And these segments are good. They add depth to it, all that stuff. But I just wasn't behind this as much as you were, more probably. But yeah, he did good. And another thing, this is gonna get some nuclear heat on it. I'm kind of over them always bringing up Cody's family. I understand that's a big part of the story, but that's like all they do. Is just bring that up. And to me, it's like, come on, he's a great wrestler. Yeah, his dad, this and that, but they need to let him do his thing. I feel like he's still riding his dad's coattail, which, Hall of Famer, great guy, loved it, all that stuff. But can they do something else? I know that's a little bit different from, what we were just talking about here, but that's just something about Cody that I think just kind of makes me not fully embrace him, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I wonder too, I mean, I don't know how this would all worked out if Goldust, Dusty Rhodes was over on WWE, because he's been signed with AEW. And I don't know how much screen time he gets over there, but throughout this whole story, you kind of think there'd be a lot to do with him.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's, he wouldn't have the star power for this type of main event type of thing. But could have added to the family stuff over this entire feud. Maybe, The Rock or somebody comes out and takes him out for 3 months, and that leads to part of what you would have here. But I always, I love AEW. I think it's doing great as far as like bringing up wrestling as a whole. They just got a few characters over there. I want to sprinkle in the WWE once in a while, and we can't do so. Coming up next after that interview was the women's tag team title match: Shayna Baszler and Zoe Stark against the Kabuki Warriors. Again, heel versus heel, so kind of different than what they normally do. Normal, booking would go in WWE. The Kabuki Warriors ended up defeating Baszler and Stark. There's not too much to say. I mean, you had a good matchup here.
Yeah.
The only thing I have to say about this is this was to me, and outside of heel versus heel, this is about the best you could do as far as a team that's hot and believable to beat the Kabuki Warriors. I don't know. I mean, you want to ask like was this the right move? I don't know. I don't know if the Kabuki War. I think it's good to have the tag team title belt on them.
Yeah.
Going on with Io Sky. That's part of the story they're telling with Damage Control. but there's just nothing in the women's division right now. Baszler and Stark was it. I mean, that's what the story they were telling, and now they kind of just get taken care of here. Maybe there's a future for them. Maybe there's, if they were going to do a WrestleMania match, which I don't think there is one. This would have been it. It's a pretty tough spot, I think, for as far as the women's tag team in the booking leading up to WrestleMania.
No, I agree with you 100%. You don't want it. It was a great match. This was it, but you don't want to see this to WrestleMania now. You know what I mean? Like, it's one of those one and done type of things. But I'm going to say this, and there's some rumors out there. Mercedes Moné, aka Sasha Banks, it still hasn't signed officially anywhere. She's still a free agent. So, you could sprinkle her into that, and, her and Naomi, got rid of them belts because they left the company. So, you could add that to the Bayley. Naomi was kind of feeling bad for Bayley. They're kind of, like I said, they're sprinkling things. So I will turn it on you. Would you be behind that if Sasha Banks returned and teamed with Naomi to help Bayley and take on the Kabuki Warriors for those titles?
Sasha Banks is probably close to my favorite. I don't know. I'd have to really think through it. I mean, Rhea Ripley is really good right now. But Sasha Banks is probably close to my favorite women's wrestler of all time. So yeah, any sort of intervention with her coming back in would be great. I think that AEW's got like a show in Boston, her hometown, that's basically all but said that she's going to be there. So I don't necessarily believe that will happen. But yeah, I mean, outside of probably Moxley, if I could have just one person come back over to the WWE, I'm a huge Moxley fan too. The Shield, I think the Shield reunion that they did was too soon.
Yeah,
I think
100%.
he did give it some time, give Ambrose or Moxley some time to go explore him somewhere else, and then bring him back. I think that would be fantastic. But I don't necessarily think that's happening either. And I don't think that Mercedes Moné is coming back to WWE, but I'll never say never. I think eventually both of them will. But I just don't know if if this is the timing for that. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Let's take a quick 10 seconds here for station identification. We'll be right back here on Nuclear Heat.
This is Lincoln's home for sports talk on the FM dial. Also online at theticketfm.com.
On the internet.
KNTK FM Firth, 93.7 The Ticket.
A little bit of extra time here on Nuclear Heat as it's late. Everybody's left the building, and so we can go for a few more minutes. The next matchup here on Raw was R-Truth and Damian Priest. Midway through the match, this was set up, by the way. Damian Priest was upset because R-Truth and The Miz are going to get a chance to compete if they win their qualifying match at the WrestleMania event. And so got to hit a button here. So this matchup, I mean, it would be a heck of an upset, obviously, if R-Truth was to get the win. Midway through the match, Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa come out of DIY. But then, of course, Damian Priest has his backup come and take them out. And Damian Priest ultimately gets the win. Correct booking here. I don't think you necessarily need to have that absolute upset at this point as you're building Priest. The one thing I will say is that Truth's commitment to the John Cena shtick, his childhood hero, is incredible. And he can, again, and I know he's been around a long time, so it's not a surprise, but he's, for his age, he's got a lot of athleticism. If he wasn't so good at comedy, you could make him a legitimate wrestler.
Yeah. And, Truth is in his 50s, like you said, he's been doing this for a very long time. And man, him doing the 5-knuckle shuffle, just committing to that bit. Earlier in the night, Damian was super upset at Truth because Nick Aldis said that it was R-Truth's idea for the ladder match. So they kind of did that. And man, R-Truth is just, he's just gold. Any segment you can plug him into, he's going to kill it. I love this match. I thought it was great on there. It's just, I laugh a lot when I see R-Truth and the whole John Cena, I love him thing. So the whole bit where they're like childhood hero when R-Truth is 10 years older than John Cena.
Right. That's part of the fun.
So it's great. It was a good match, but good win for Damian Priest, in there too.
Well, and I think that if there's any team that's going to knock off Judgment Day at WrestleMania, will probably be R-Truth in the Miz, just for kind of a great moment, a story. It's one of those things that would just be just that. I think that either the Judgment Day would find either something else to do or would reclaim those titles pretty quickly. I mean, you could see them taking the titles off of Priest in order to make way for him to cash in. unfortunately, maybe against Gunther
Yeah,
for the Intercontinental
maybe.
title or for a bigger title. But I don't think that he's necessarily. I think if you did it for the Intercontinental title, I wouldn't. I don't like it because if you've got the chance to cash in on anything, that's what it made me really mad that they did that last year.
Yeah.
And for the United States Championship. But Gunther's built that his title reign up enough that it would be significant for Priest. Then Gunther could move on to kind of challenging for one of the main titles. So, I mean, it could make some sense if they do it that way, but we'll wait and see. Coming up after that, we had Jey Uso's WrestleMania challenge to his brother Jimmy. This is, I mean, you could see it coming from a mile away, and it's going to be a very good matchup. I mean, you kind of think of brother versus brother. We've had Bret and Owen Hart. We've had Matt and Jeff Hardy. Now we'll have Jimmy and Jey Uso. I just thought they should have done this when it was a little bit it felt a little bit hotter coming off of the time when Jimmy came in a couple weeks ago and cost Jey the chance at that Intercontinental title. Like, it felt like, okay, I can't wait to see what happens next. And then Jey just kind of pretended it didn't happen, and they let Jimmy come in and do it again. And it was just like, oh, you know, they didn't have that story elongated quite enough. I feel like it's taken a little bit of heat off that. It took a little bit of heat off this moment in my mind.
Yeah.
But still, the obvious choice and something I'm looking forward to at WrestleMania.
Yeah, and you know, for me, you got to get their father Rikishi involved in this, special guest referee, something. I think if you add that stipulation, this really becomes something personal. But the crowd reaction was really hot to this. You know, they were still really into this. People still want to see it. I agree with you; it's a little overdue, but I think it's right to be saved for a WrestleMania moment. I'm interested to see kind of what sort of a stipulation they add to it, like who's all involved. I know the bloodline is involved with the Raw, you know, all that stuff. But, you know, is it another tribal combat? You know, are they going to bring the elders in it? You know, like I said, Rikishi, you know, because this bloodline is everywhere. You know, that family is everywhere in the WWE. So they can make it interesting. They can really, really cook this up for us. But the WWE's got to do something about Jimmy, because Jay's still up here.
Yeah.
Jimmy is still... He's still that lackey that, you know, that he's the other brother.
He takes the pins. Right
now he takes the pins. He's the other brother, which you never want to be. So they got to get him some heat. They got to bring him up a little bit to be on Jay's level for this to really hit, I think.
Yeah, and Jay is very over with the crowd. I would have to favor him in that match. But yeah, I mean, like I was saying, I love the match. I love the idea. I'll really enjoy it. But it's like this Jimmy versus Jay thing, you know, could be seen from a mile away. And when I say that, I mean like 6 months ago.
Yeah.
So if this was always the plan, and maybe there was changes, obviously with The Rock and the Cody thing, it might have changed a lot of different things. But I just feel like it could have been booked a lot better and kept the heat from it a lot more than they did. And then again, I thought that they had a good chance. They did a good job of getting the heat back, and then just waited 2 weeks to make this challenge. But you know, whatever. I'll look forward to it one way or the other. And like you said, the crowd's going to be incredibly into it. Then we have the gauntlet match to wrap up Raw for the chance at the Intercontinental title in Gunther at WrestleMania. This was a pretty good matchup. Here you're going to have Ricochet, JD McDonough started off. Bronson Reed would get involved eventually. Sami Zayn, Nakamura, and Chad Gable. Again, from the beginning, I thought that it was pretty obvious that you were either going to have Gable win or Sami Zayn win, just because of the stories that they've been telling. But I got to tell you this, JD McDonough and Ricochet put on one heck of a show to start this thing. Didn't necessarily made me believe that either one of them was gonna win the whole thing, especially because they did it so long, and they do this in gauntlet matches where it's like, well, he's so tired, there's no way he's gonna do it. And they ultimately did that. But I think there was a little bit of more respect for McDonough than I had previously going into that match. And I thought, because they did have that confrontation between the Judgment Day and Imperium, like, I didn't have a whole lot of belief that McDonough was going to win, but I did think that they probably could have teased that a little more, maybe have him pick up a few victories, make you think, well, maybe they are going to go with McDonough. But they didn't do that. They ended up having Ricochet pin McDonough. Bronson Reed comes out, hits his tsunami after a little bit of battle back and forth with Ricochet, and takes out Ricochet. Sami Zayn then hits the ring, defeats Reed. Reed isn't happy about it, so he beats up Zayn post getting pinned. Shinsuke Nakamura comes out looking to take advantage of Sami Zayn and be after the post-match beatdown. Isn't able to do it. Zayn is able to get the win. Chad Gable comes out respectfully with Sami Zayn all beat up and gets him to his feet. He doesn't take advantage of his opponent, doesn't take advantage of the whole idea of the gauntlet match, which, by the way, the only one thing I do kind of wish is, like, it's very important which guy you are entering the match. So I'd kind of like to see, like, how do they determine that? But I guess that's really getting in the weeds. But in any case, I thought they did the right thing in having Zayn and Gable go at it to close the show. Sami Zayn ultimately gets the win. He's finally got his spot at WrestleMania and a chance to take down Gunther. Was this the right booking? What do you think?
Absolutely not. I will say that 100%. Chad Gable's shoulders were not down. It was like a weird looking pin. His shoulders weren't down, like the back of his head was. The ref couldn't really see it. The crowd reaction was very mixed too. Chad Gable, it seemed like he had a legitimate, and I know Sammy did as well. So we'll see where they go with this, but I did not think this was the right thing. I was a little disappointed. I really wanted to see Chad Gable go up against Gunther one-on-one again, but we don't always get what we want. We got a really good gauntlet match. I thought these guys really did put on a great performance there. But no, Sami Zayn, we talked about it a couple, for the last couple weeks. I just have no interest. His star has faded. He was lost in the shuffle. They're trying to do these segments like, he's lost, this and that. You don't do this. Chad Gable's so over with the crowd, so over with the fans, all that stuff. He's a great wrestler. He's great on the mic. He had a great reason. His daughter was crying after he lost to Gunther, so he said he wanted to do it for her. They had all the reasons to give it to Gable, and they pulled it from under our rugs and they gave it to Sami Zayn. So I know you might not be as disappointed as me, but I was very, very bummed it was Sami Zayn that won this.
Well, when I do think about the Intercontinental title run that Gunther has had, I do think first and foremost about his battles with Gable, and they set it up that way. Like, he was the first one to beat Gunther, I think through disqualification, or if you remember their little feud back then, there was some real believability and hard hitting matches that Gunther almost would have a chance to lose to Gable. And it's kind of, it's kind of your traditional, small guy versus big guy, overcome the obstacles type of story that you'd have to tell there. And the Sami Zayn story has been, I don't think anybody's sunk their teeth into that either. It's just interviews about him and why he can't win and can't find a spot at WrestleMania. So they've kind of been able to tell that story. But I feel like this is like booking in reverse to cover yourself historically, if that makes any sense. Because Sami Zayn with the bloodline and then his breakup with the bloodline, like you say, you're just not interested in him. I was complete opposite. Like, I wanted Sami Zayn to headline WrestleMania last year against Roman Reigns. I thought that's where the money was, and that's where the interest should have been. And of course, they ultimately went with Cody and gave Sami his moment. But they didn't do anything with those tag team titles, not enough to justify the moment that it was in WrestleMania last year. And now a year away from it, after it, Sammy's star has not risen. It's only fallen since the bloodline in that. So I think this was kind of a way to maybe historically look back and say, okay, well, this year he was doing that, and the next year, he had a chance to knock off Gunther. But he shouldn't win. He shouldn't beat Gunther. No. I don't know if either one of them should, but I think at least Gable, you would question whether he should. I don't question that Zayn should beat Gunther. So I think that maybe, and I think there is possibility with the way it ended, like you said, in with kind of Gable's story, that they he finds a way to make this a triple threat match. I think it needs it.
Yeah, no, it does, because you're absolutely right. Gunther has elevated this Intercontinental Championship to, above and beyond. And the person that is going to beat him is going to ascend. And it needs to be somebody who is believable in that. And I think everybody kind of cleaned to Chad Gable for it, because, he's not Sami Zayn, great, has been around. But like you said, there's just nothing going right for him right now. And if you're going to tell me Gunther is the longest reigning Intercontinental Championship, and which, by the way, he needs to start going after the main titles. He does. So I do believe he needs to lose the title at WrestleMania. But if you were to tell me it's Sami Zayn that's going to do that, no way. I don't buy that. That was a waste. That's a waste of a title run to me then.
Yeah.
If it's Chad Gable, you got somebody. Chad Gable's a great wrestler. He's great on the mic. The Alpha Academy, the Woo. He's got everything going for him right now. Yeah. It is his moment. It could be like a Zack Ryder moment, when he won the Intercontinental Championship, even though they took it away the next night. We'll see what they do with what they would have done there. But yeah, I was disappointed. It's one of those moments where I don't get super bummed at wrestling. I'm like, okay, this and that. This was one of those moments. I was just like, why? I just 100% just kind of ruined it for me, if that makes sense. If they go Sami Zayn versus Gunther at WrestleMania 1-on-1, I think that will end up being the biggest disappointment of a match on that night. If they can find a way to add Gable, which we both agree they need to, it's fine. It's back onto it, because then Gunther technically doesn't even need to be pinned. They could go that way to keep Gunther kind of up where he's at and keep his streak of not being pinned going. But man, I know I'm talking a lot right now, but it's just because I just
you're upset,
so upset with it, and I know people might be, it's just wrestling, but this is how invested we get in it. We get behind wrestlers, we get behind stories. It's so great, they build it up, and then they do this, and it just kills everything.
Well, and Gable too has long been compared to one of my favorite wrestlers, at least one of my favorite intro musics, which is Kurt Angle, and because he's got just a lot of the similarities, the wrestling background, the Olympic background, he can do comedy great, just like Kurt Angle could, and but they just haven't pushed him to that level. Like he's got it, it's all there. They just haven't pushed him to that level. He needs that victory that kind of brings them up to that level. And I think that this one would. And again, if you're going to have these long title reigns, you don't just want to have it end and then have somebody like Sami Zayn wouldn't go from 80 to 90 or whatever. You look at the 2K ratings, whatever. He wouldn't take a big step in his career. It would just kind of be like, oh yeah, I mean, they still like Zayn, but again, it would be the same thing. Like a year later, are they going to be forcing him at WrestleMania?
Yeah.
And Gable, it would feel like that would be such a huge accomplishment, put him up in a different stratosphere than where he's at now. And it's time to make the push. So I agree with you. I mean, I'd be so fascinated by Gable in an Intercontinental title shot. But it's not going to happen without Zayn there. At least they found something for Sami Zayn. They told the story. We don't have anything for Sami Zayn, and they filled it out and they found it. So as upset we are about the gauntlet match, I do love gauntlet matches.
Yeah,
that was awesome,
fun.
regardless of almost who's involved. All right, we went over a little bit here on Nuclear Heat. We have fun talking some WWE, and we usually get caught talking about one of the mid-carders for longer than we should. So that's always fun. But we'd like to thank you for joining us again. If you have wrestling friends or fans, you're always welcome to comment on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, or text in 424-645-5685. Please tell your friends about it. Again, we've got a new Twitter at Nuclear Heat Show, so you can follow that. We will live stream all our shows there. And we'll be back next week. This road to WrestleMania is fantastic, and lots to talk about, lots of storylines, lots of fun. So we'll continue with that next week, and we'll see. I mean, it'll be the next chapter. There's so much to go through in these shows. We'll see where we are. Sometimes it feels a week away, is like a month away at this time at WrestleMania season, because just so much happens in these storylines. But that'll wrap it up for myself, Jake Bakunin, host of Nuclear Heat, for Nuclear Heat contributor Augie Pena as well. We will actually send it out to national programming here for our 93.7 The Ticket listeners. And then be ready for early break, bright and early in the morning at 6 o'clock here on 93.7 The Ticket. So tune into that. Tune into our next episode of Nuclear Heat, and thanks for staying up with us. If you did, have some fun as we build up to WrestleMania, and we will see you guys next week.
Old School with DP and J.
Do you think it's too early to talk about Patrick Mahomes as the greatest of all time? To be honest with you, I think he might be ahead of the pace. It was definitely on pace, maybe ahead of the pace. I think right now everything that he does is going to get overblown, and I think